Hello movie Barfs, and welcome back to the channel. It's pretty established by now that Falcon and the Winter Soldier didn't really stick the landing at the end. Overall, it was a mixed bag with a lukewarm reception. Here are 11 cringeworthy moments which I found to dampen the show's experience. We'll be covering major plot points in great detail, so it's best if you've watched the entire series. Number 11, the hell yeah, he's Captain America moment. In the final episode, when Falcon suddenly swoops down to save the falling armored truck, we see that a small crowd has gathered to witness the action. As Falcon lifts the truck to safety, we see a man going, "Hell yeah, that's the Black Falcon." If that wasn't cheesy enough, another man goes, "Nah, that's Captain America." I was internally facepalming at that moment. It was cringy dialogue that reminded me of the New York spectators cheering on Tobey Maguire's 2002 Spider-Man in the bridge scene at the end. I get that they were trying to show that the public was starting to warm up to Sam as the new Cap, but surely they could have done it in a less ham-fisted, in-your-face style. Number 10. Zemo is taken to the Raft. The whole time when the Wakandan guards were after Zemo, I had the impression that they were seeking to bring him to justice in Wakanda. I mean, wasn't that the whole point? They were harping on the fact that Zemo killed their king, who they were appointed to protect. That was their one job. Every time they look at Zemo, he's a walking and talking reminder of their failure as the king's guards. So it seemed reasonable to assume that they were kicking up all that fuss so that they could bring him back to Wakandan justice, just like in the case of Ulysses Klaue in Black Panther. Sending Zemo to the Raft instead doesn't line up with our expectations for the Wakandan guards. It's uncharacteristic of them and a pretty anticlimactic end to Zemo's arc in this series. Guess they need him there for a Thunderbolts spin-off. Number 9, the boat bonding episode. Okay, some of you actually find this alright, so it's a bit higher up on the list. But I found this part of the series to be incredibly boring. I get that Sam and Bucky needed some bonding time, but wouldn't their training sequence and their subsequent heart-to-heart talk about making amends be enough? I was pretty bummed out that I waited a week just to see them repair a boat for what feels like the majority of the episode. It was like day and night when you contrast it with the epic fight between Walker and Sam and Bucky at the start. Not to mention, it sort of ruined the pacing of the episode too. Number 8, Sharons Reveal as the Power Broker. Compared to WandaVision, this series had relatively less mystery. There weren't as many fan theories and Mephisto wasn't hiding behind every character reveal. But one plot twist that we all saw coming from a mile away was Sharon Carter's reveal as the Power Broker. I'm somewhat okay with her being the Power Broker, although I can see why most would find it an odd choice. But my issue is with the way it's revealed. Things are going slowly in the second last episode. Sam is training with the shield, and suddenly we get a scene of Sharon making a shady phone call to Batroc, revealing her to be the Power Broker. And the thing is, it's done in isolation. No other character takes part in her reveal except us, the audience. It's not like we get to see Sam or Bucky have to deal with the emotional shock of her betrayal. Her identity is still hidden to the rest of the characters, and as a result, that reveal has hardly any payoff or impact. Why bother to keep her identity a secret if the show is just going to spill the beans to us in such a random fashion? It's kind of like Kylo Ren's face reveal in The Force Awakens. He just takes his helmet off for no reason when his face has been hidden up to that point. It would have been more effective if they'd just shown her as the Power Broker earlier in the first few episodes. Then we'd have the intrigue of framing all of Sharon's supposedly good actions as having dubious intentions right from the start, giving her character a bigger payoff at the end. Number 7. Karli is just shot to death. Karli was a pretty lackluster villain for the series. The show managed to give her somewhat of a sympathetic edge, but it fell flat when she went off the deep end and started killing civilians. She's still a terrorist at the end of the day, and even her followers were doubting her over her radical approach. But the worst part of her story arc is how her character was finished off so anticlimactically. With all her super soldier abilities and her sympathetic intentions, she was just shot dead by Sharon, who many felt wasn't the right person to end her character. No final clash of ideals with Sam, no super soldier one-on-one duel with Walker, just shot dead by surprise. To kill her off by just shooting her makes the previous encounters seem silly. So all this while, Carly could have been stopped if Sam or Bucky or even just a regular soldier had a gun with them. And speaking of Sharon not being the right person to finish her off, that brings us to our next point. Number 6. John Walker becomes a good guy at the end. The whole time throughout the series, John Walker appeared to be set up for a final showdown with Carly. He had the strongest motivation since she killed his best friend, and I thought the scene with Lamar's parents served to reinforce that motivation, knowing that his killer was still running free. I felt that Walker should be the one to kill Carly instead, and maybe have a face-off with Sam in a cat versus cat battle. That would have been a more satisfying end for both Carly's and Walker's arc. But instead, they make John Walker a straight-up good guy all of a sudden. I get that he's doing the right thing by saving the armored truck, but he completely ignores his past conflict with Sam and Bucky. Did he forget that they were continually giving him the cold shoulder, took away his shield, and broke his arm? He was totally set up to be an anti-hero at the end, and it was uncharacteristic of him to be all friendly with Bucky and merciful to the Flag Smashers. As for his conflict with Sam, it just ends with an approving nod after his speech. What happened to his firm belief that he is the one who should be Captain America? This character revolution is not very convincing, and it's why this deserves a spot in this list. Number 5. Sam and his family don't have any protection. With Sam's secret identity being known publicly, it seems absurd that both he and his family would just go on living in their regular neighborhoods. Wouldn't the government, or at least the Avengers, provide some more secure accommodation for them? They're just sitting ducks waiting to be attacked, as seen when Carly threatens Sam with his sister. Any terrorist wanting to exact revenge on Sam can just attack him and his family freely, just like the case with the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. In fact, it's odd that Batroc wouldn't just do this since he's been holding a grudge against Sam. And even after being threatened by Carly, Sam and his family just continue with their lives as per normal. How they manage to sleep at night is a question left unanswered. Number 4. Bucky's confession to Yori. This moment was something that was set up all the way back in the first episode. We knew that Bucky would eventually revisit Yori and give him the closure that his son was killed by him when he was the Winter Soldier. So when Bucky did make the plunge, I was pretty stoked to see the outcome. We finally get the emotional payoff we've been waiting for 6 episodes. But after he tells the truth, the scene just ends abruptly there, robbing us of any impact of this setup. We don't get to see his reaction if he's angry or devastated. It could have been a pivotal moment in Bucky's redemption, but the scene just cuts there, leaving us with nothing but the feeling of being cheated. It reminds me of the scene in X-Men First Class where Eric and Xavier were having a conversation about killing Shaw. Xavier tells Eric that killing will not bring him peace. Eric counters with the line, "Peace was never an option," and the scene just ends. Just like Bucky's confession to Yori, it leaves much to be desired too. Number 3. Sam's sermon at the end. Now that Sam is Captain America, I get that the showrunners need him to make a patriotic speech so that the public would know who he is. It started off well at first, but it just went on for too long and became a bit preachy. Sometimes short and sweet is better, and a good balance can be seen in Steve's speech to the helicarriers at the end of Winter Soldier. Here is Sam's big public moment as the new Cap, and he decides to give a sermon? His entire speech can be summed up in these 4 words: "You gotta do better." It makes light of the situation as Sam doesn't offer any suggestions or take into account any of their limitations. He just says, "Do better," as if that was enough to solve the complicated situation the world was in. If it were so easy, wouldn't the GRC have already found a way to do it? Number 2. Sam needs a loan. In the first episode, we find out that Sam is broke, as he was one of those who were blipped back after 5 years. So his loan application at the bank gets denied, and he just leaves it at that. Now I don't understand why he would be broke. Surely he would have been pretty well compensated during his time as an Avenger under Tony Stark? I mean, even Tony said in Spider-Man Homecoming that the Avengers are at a higher pay grade than the FBI. But even without that, surely he could call in a few favors from some of his rich pals. Tony isn't around, but I'm sure Pepper or Rhodey would be willing and more than able to loan him what he needs, or even just straight out give him what he requires. I guess Falcon also doesn't come under any sponsorships or merchandising because he would be pretty well off by now. Clearly, merchandising is a thing in the MCU, as seen by the John Walker Captain America action figures at the start of Episode 2. Maybe there weren't any Falcon action figures, but the point is, it's a huge stretch of imagination that someone so famous and publicly loved wouldn't be able to monetize it. But all speculation aside, I guess the writers wanted to humanize Sam by giving him some of the struggles that we face, just like Peter Parker's inability to pay rent in Spider-Man 2. And probably also to avoid going down the same merchandising path that the Boys series already showed us. And number 1, no one recognizes Sam in Madripoor. You saw this coming. In the second episode, when Sam visits Madripoor with Zemo and Bucky, absolutely no one there recognizes him as the Falcon. You'd think that in the huge population of criminals, at least someone would be able to at least recognize one of the Avengers. But no, we're expected to believe that he can just blend in there due to his smiling tiger alias. His face isn't even disguised. That was the most illogical thing about the show. And not just Sam, but Bucky too. Surely the criminal underworld would have at least heard rumors that the Winter Soldier is no more, but is now going after the criminals he once helped. Well, that's the end of our list. Did we miss out on anything? What were your gripes with the show? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.